That's it. I've made my decision. I'm sticking with my covenant that I already was, as to not gain the betrayer status and have to rejoin them after 1 week if I wanted to go back.
Yes, that's normally how it works, right? Normally, when you leave a covenant, you can't come back without doing a nice, fun, reproving yourself experience. But as a one-time takesies backsies offer, Blizzard is going to allow us to rejoin without those extra steps. So here's how this is going to work. At some point in the next couple days, they are going to flick a switch that will remove that betrayer flag from everybody's characters for whatever covenants they've earned it for already.
Mhm.
So you played Venthyr at the start of the patch, and then you went Kyrian middle of 9.0, and then you went Night Fate at the end of 9.0. They're going to flick a switch, and everybody will be happy to take you back. No problem. You will still get to rejoin with your old Renown, with all of your old Covenant Sanctum all built and everything.
Exactly.
But it's not, not that much different actually than joining a fresh Covenant anyways, because Renown from 1 to 40 is really fast right now, this patch anyway.
Exactly, and you get 2 renown per campaign
Per
thing that
campaign
you're
quest, yeah.
Exactly. So there would be, what was it, eight chapters that you would get. So now you're getting twice. So you would previously get 8 renown from the campaign. Now you're getting 16. Really fast situation. You also get 1 renown per renown gaining event that you do, so you're able to like juice up your character. So you saw a lot of these people, maybe your favorite Twitch streamer was grinding their renown on some random covenant. You could also grind your renown on that random covenant, right? Like after the swap, get up to 40 in 5 hours, something like that.
Even before the swap, if you have a covenant swap you are thinking about making, try and make that decision before Blizzard makes this flip, so that you can, do it and then get your betrayer flag reset for the covenant you've just abandoned brutally.
Overall, I would say that this is actually a pretty good change. Does kind of go against some of their thoughts and things that they've said about like maintaining covenants and permanent decisions, but at the same time, for players, like how players function in this game, I do think this is a pretty good change. It also allows everybody to kind of test the waters again, get a little bit more options and opportunity to be able to test new stuff.
Yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense. It is kind of weird that people who did pick one covenant and stick with it, now it's like, oh, I actually wish I had grinded all my renowns with all the other ones. Like it's kind of weird that incentive has been flipped on its head. But I think it makes sense because a lot of covenants are changing. Which covenant is the best for this spec in this situation has changed for a lot of different spec situation combos coming into the patch. So let's talk a little bit about that. Wowhead has a ton of covenant spec, guides, what's changing in 9.1 guides. Very good source to go and read through for whatever specs you're interested in playing. Get a good kind of baseline understanding of what the thinking is for your spec. Of course, we are always in a little bit of the dark in the start of a patch. You might remember at the start of 9.0, for instance, some Moonkin saboteurs may have tried to convince you to play Kyrian when that was clearly not it.
Dude, not my fault. Stop. I will not be gaslit months later.
This is true. He did tell us to do that. But it's our best guess of what's going on right now before any nerfs or buffs are coming in at the start of, like, say, next week, Heroic Week, which there's a chance, some speculation exists in the community that chance of that tuning has gone up as a result of them resetting this betrayer flag, right? You could imagine a world where Blizzard internally is like, oh no, we need to really nerf this, covenant spat class combo.
Yeah.
But if we do that, they'll be sad. But if we flick this switch, maybe they'll be more willing to accept us really changing the covenant balance this coming week.
Well, in addition to that, like, you're going to have the legendaries. We talked about this last week, covenant legendaries. How will it affect classes that haven't seen their legendary? Like, because most of the balancing happens during Heroic Week, and you don't get your covenant specific class legendary up until you get Renown 48, which notably opens at Mythic, right? You got 2 Renown this week, you'll get 3 for the next 2 weeks, meaning that you'll be 48 on Mythic Week, and this makes some spec covenant combos get a lot more powerful, notably like Kyrian Ret, Venthyr Fury, Venthyr Balance Druid, to name a couple. There are a few more that are looking to play their Covenant Legendary. But at the same time, how is Blizzard going to tackle balancing those things? Are they just going to kind of let it be the Wild West and hope that they had it nailed down appropriately during the PTR? Or is it going to Are we going to see like some nerfs during Mythic Week? That would be wild. I don't think we've seen anything like that except for corruption.
It's rare that class specific nerfs come out after Heroic Week starts because they don't want to make everybody's decisions that they've made going into the start of progression, retroactively wrong. But a lot of Shadowlands decisions have made things retroactively wrong, right? Like, oh, I crafted my legendary into my helmet. Oops. That was that was a mistake 6 months ago. I didn't know about it, but it was, right? So maybe that design philosophy has been shifted a little bit. I would say that the chances are pretty low, though, that they'll do class tuning after Heroic Week starts, but they're non-zero. It's definitely something to, I guess, it's not something to worry about. Nothing you can do about it, right? If it happens, it happens. Let's talk a little bit about what some of the changes from 9.0 covenants coming into 9.1 are looking like. Again, this is for like raid focused players that are making these swaps to try and min-max for raid. There are a lot of different best covenants for M plus or PvP or just whatever you want. And for the most part, I think one great thing about the last 7 months has been that the disparity between those weaker kind of underpicked covenants and the good ones has gotten smaller for most specs. There are a few specs still that have some outliers, but there are a lot of specs now where it's actually like all four are good and we don't know what's best.
And nothing speaks to that more than the tank roll, Dratnos. The tank roll, you see Blood Death Knight that says any covenant for raid, any covenant for Mythic Plus. I feel like that could probably be extended to most of these tank specs as a whole. A lot of them, sure, there may be a best covenant, right? Vengeance says Kyrian and Night Fae. Those two are pretty good. At the same time, though, we've seen a decent amount of Venthyr Vengeance Demon Hunters do
Necrolord in the MDI.
And Necrolord in the MDI, exactly. Venthyr and Necrolord both came out in spades in the MDI. I think that most of the covenants for most of these tank specs are pretty solid as a whole. Like you said, the balance has kind of hit a point where it's not bad for the tank roll.
Yeah, I think that most of the like top end tanks are ready to swap if there's like a fight where you want Fleshcraft or Soul Shape or whatever. If there's some reason that we don't know about yet, which at this point we're pretty sure there's not a huge reason to have like Vial of Serenity to clear a bleed, but you never know what Sylvanas' mythic mechanics are. Those are always kept under wraps. So.
Dude, I saw from a Wowhead associate on Twitter that one of Sylvanas' mythic mechanics is the jailer picking her up and slamming her into the ground.
I saw that was the animation.
Yeah. Okay, that's completely off topic, random tangent.
Healer's also looking pretty similar to what they did last patch. The one notable thing I saw with healers is like Disc Priests, considering that Kyrian Covenant now, which is a bit of a new development, but could be pretty cool.
It was always good. Kyrian Disc was always good. It did a lot of damage. It's not super surprising to see that a decent amount of them are swapping, at least for like we said, higher end progression. Swapping may not be the best choice for like a one size fits all for everybody. I think at the end of the day too, if you were like set in stone on whatever covenant you really want to be, even if it goes against this, if you were like, oh, I really closely identify with whatever, you should play that. I think that more often than not, you can kind of get away with it.
I think the priest ones in particular, like all four, are pretty much good for all specs. It's not one where there's a big outlier.
Yeah.
Exactly. DPS classes, we saw hunters in 9.0 mostly being Night Fae.
Yeah.
However, halfway through 9.0, they did a bug fix that made Night Fae a lot closer to the other covenants.
Yeah.
And now, thanks to some extra scaling, thanks to the way the new raid is looking like it'll work, thanks to these new soulbind traits we've got, Kyrian looks like it's going to be the new preferred covenant for Hunter. I would say it'll probably be less dominant in PvE this patch than like Night Fae was last patch. I think you'll probably still see some people playing Fae, but looks like the Kyrian is the new hotness for that class.
It comes down to like scaling raid design and new soul binds. Stone Legion Generals was like the epitome of like Night Fae Hunter fight, right? Like that was like the best Night Fae Hunter fight. Resonating Arrow is going to be slightly worse on a fight like that, but at the same time, it's probably still close. You can probably still get away with it.
So we're talking about the difference between being a 1 minute cooldown class and a 2 minute cooldown class, right?
Yeah.
And that is, a lot of that is going to be determined based on, is the hard fight 1 minute burst windows or 2 minute burst windows, right? Or 3, right? If it's a 3 minute burst window, then a 1 minute cooldown's better because you don't miss uses.
Yeah.
Hunter, I think there's a lot of people worried about that class in general because of balancing as well. I think that's one that people are hoping to see some numbers go up on Heroic Week, so we'll
Yeah.
keep our eyes peeled for that. Definitely a lot of hunters, fingers crossed for that one.
Some other swappers, we got the rogues, who have been I would say the most wishy-washy class on what covenant they're playing, basically the whole entire expansion, and that doesn't seem like that's like that much different. All three rogue specs, I mean, you have like Necrolord, Venthyr, and Kyrian all being represented between all three of these specs. It seems like a lot of the rogues that are going for like the top end, like world first progression raid setting is looking like they're going Venthyr, right, Dratnos?
Yeah, there's kind of the convergence towards the best single target build, which is Venthyr Assassination. Looks like the answer there.
Mm-hmm.
Necrolord, another really popular choice. It's also pretty good for Assassination, and it's a very good choice for Outlaw Mythic Plus. But there's exciting news about Kyrian and to a lesser extent Fae as well. The Kyrian Legendary potentially has some exciting implications. All of the Rogue Covenant-specific legendaries really are potentially interesting. So that's definitely going to be one where, you know, the Rogues have been this weird one where they just kind of balance the Covenants by making none of them do anything for that class. So you see people playing all four of them, and it's not a big deal either way.
Legendaries too, all kind of up in the air. It's like, oh, they're kind of all meh.
Yeah, that's why the Covenant legendaries are potentially coming in for all of them. It's potentially interesting because there's really not any legendary that's so strong that you wouldn't consider the Covenant ones.
Speaking of some Covenant legendary classes, we got DPS warriors, notably Fury. You see them swapping to Venthyr. Most Fury
staying
warriors
Venthyr in a lot of cases, yeah.
Okay, or staying Venthyr in a lot of cases. I mean, a lot of warriors were playing Night Fae they're playing Night Fae Fury during farm of Castle Nathria. I say a lot. I don't really know what the numbers look like on that, but at least there were some that were playing Night Fae Fury during Nathria farm. They're looking to go back Venthyr, become Venthyr for the first time. Who's really to say with that? But
the
notably,
Covenant's forgotten all about it anyways. So, you know, one time takes these backsies to Covenant amnesia here.
Okay, we got the Covenant amnesia. But yeah, the new Venthyr legendary is looking pretty hot for Fury for sure.
Yeah, it's like a permanent recklessness during execute. Pretty sweet. So that kind of thing.
Wait, is that actually what it is?
Pretty much, yeah.
That's so wild. Holy moly.
The Arms Warriors, on the other hand, first off, the Warriors that can play both specs look like they're mostly planning to play Fury this tier. The Arms Warriors, though, staying Night Fae in a lot of cases, or even potentially going Night Fae to support the rest of the team. Whenever your spec doesn't do damage, sorry, Necrolord, of course. Whenever your spec doesn't do damage, you know, you just press button that makes the rest of your friends do some damage instead. That's the Necrolord warrior way.
That's the best way to play. We've all saw the great amount of contention with power infusion. There's no way that this banner could cause any animosity between players.
How about Balancer Tettles as a Moonkin main? What's the deal with this spec?
I mean, a lot of the top end raiders are swapping Venthyr. Venthyr Sims really high. There's everybody's kind of chilling with bated breath, waiting to see how everything plays out, because there's a lot of questions as to like whether or not the fights are good for Venthyr. Night Fae is of course still not bad. Plus everybody's start as Night Fae.
The upside of Venthyr, right, is that like your Ravenous Frenzy is a 3-minute cooldown that lines up with your 3-minute Celestial Alignment, right?
And the upside is that it does 8% more damage according to Sims.
Yeah, if you can stand still for 40 seconds after you press Celestial Alignment and Frenzy, it does a boatload of damage.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, that's definitely highly conditional. We'll have to see how that actually works out in Raid.
I don't want to be on the wrong end of another Covenant selection.
Yeah, you want to stay nice and non-committal.
I got tweeted out last time about how I'm ruining World of Warcraft or something.
Mages are potentially the reason that this Covenant swap thing was done, because a lot of mages have been really pulled in different directions for their Covenant. So basically the way it works is that all three mage specs kind of want to be a different Covenant. Kyrian kind of wants to be the Covenant if you're playing Arcane. Playing Frost, looks like Venthyr probably the one you mostly want to be. Of course, Fire and Night Fae, still two great tastes that taste great together. Have been some nerfs to Fire, but it's always a possibility. Fire has a lot of traits that make it potentially good for Raid. Does good execute damage. It's mobile. It's got a cheat death. Those sorts of things are often underrated, and even when it's simming pretty low, Fire has been the best spec for Mage in a lot of tiers before, so I wouldn't write that one off either. So you've got all three of these different Covenant spec combos that mages are considering, and most of the top end mages I know are, they've got a best guess starting as, and they have like a plan for what they're planning and ready to swap to whatever they actually need to do of the others.
What are the mages in your guild playing right now?
I think that they're kind of evenly split between starting as Kyrian Arcane and starting as Venthyr Frost.
Okay. Our mages are all Kyrian Arcane. But at the same time, I think, like you said, everybody's kind of sitting there waiting to see what, some of the top mage players in the World First guilds do. And then it's just like they'll make their decision based off of that. But of course, again, as I said earlier, if you have a very strong preference, say you closely identify with playing fire, especially Night Fae Fire, please stay Night Fae Fire. Don't feel obligated to swap just because you see random Twitch streamer swap.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this is to a level of like a couple of percentage points, right? It's not going to make or break your WoW experience, and whatever worked for you last patch, there's a very good chance that will continue to work for you. But if you want to play something new and cool, if you like playing Flavor of the Month, people say Flavor of the Month as like a disparaging thing, but it's nice to have a new flavor every month sometimes. That's variety is the spice of life. So trying out something new, trying out this Kyrian Arcane thing, you get some Arcane Blast crits that are unbelievably out of this world. So it's fun.
I find pure DPS like to swap a decent amount in terms of like what spec they're playing, and some of those are the Warlock variety of this tier. Transitioning that one, you like that? A lot of the top Warlocks have moved off the Affliction after that one kind of got gutted, and so now they're playing.
It's still playable. I mean, it's not. If you like Affliction, if you've been an Affliction main, it's gonna be fine. But it does look like Demo and Destro are going to be the main answers. So it looks like it's going to be Demo for a single target, Destro for any time there's ever any second target ever involved in a fight.
Ever.
The good news for Warlock, though, is that unlike Mage, all three of your specs love the same Covenant. They're all very happy being Night Fae, so Warlock should get to hang out Night Fae, not have to worry about this headache of like committing to a spec in advance by choosing the Covenant that's associated with it. So yeah, you can stay Night Fae if you're Warlock. You can actually have all three different Soulbind trees work great with one of each spec, and so you don't even have the conduit energy problems. It is a spec that is sheltered from the storm of the problems of the Shadowlands systems if you want to play multiple specs because of just luck that everything lines up like that.
Yeah, I do definitely I think it's pretty nice that if you're playing all three the same Covenant, you can just like swap on a whim and not really feel like you're losing that much, at least in the damage wise. So we talked about buffs and nerfs later potentially in the patch. Something we didn't talk about is Shards of Domination tuning. And this is an interesting one because not many people will have sockets on their gear, and even fewer people will have like a 3-set unlocked during Heroic Week, Blizzard typically will end up going off of like Warcraft logs data for a lot of their balancing decisions from time to time.
In their internal version of it, right? They have their own way of tracking all that stuff that doesn't rely on people actually starting logging or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah. So what we're talking about here is like we're speculating about if there will be a balanced tuning pass on Heroic Week, but like you said, Tettles, they don't really have data on what domination sockets will do to class balancing. The good news is they probably mostly affect most classes about the same because their effects are so simple, right? It's like a
Chaos Bane.
They say what they do on the tin, right? It's like, oh, this is a 2% DPS increase, unless you're a pet class that they don't work for, apparently. So,
dude,
yeah, I hate to see that. But there is this little bit of precedent where these sorts of systems sometimes do get the tuning pass later in the patch. You can think about something like the Laser Matrix Azerite trait. They got toned down, and the Archive of the Titans, they got toned up. In Uldir, right? Those weren't class-specific things. Those were like the raid damage mechanic.
Yeah.
And those got tuned midway through Mythic progression for a lot of folks. And that's the kind of thing where maybe that'll happen with Shards as well. So it's something that we'll keep our eye open for. It's something to, I guess, think about when you're upgrading your Shards is like, what if they change this, right? Make sure I'm not using something that is only good because this set bonus is BIS, right?
Sure.
Make sure you're upgrading something that you would use even if the other set bonus became better or whatever.
Yep. Making sure that like if you're DPS class, there's like 3 DPS shards, so making sure that you're upgrading the 3 DPS shards first, and then
That seems like the
upgrading-
best plan. Yeah, just
Exactly.
upgrade one level for each of your damage shards, back to back to back. And if you do that, it's pretty hard to imagine a way that they could tune these that would make your decision retroactively wrong.
That'd be so weird.
It's not impossible, but it would be hard. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think with that said, that's going to be it for us today. I think overall, pretty good stuff this week. Korthia grinding has been interesting with the 9.1 release. Dratnos has been stuck in combat, not able to loot any chests, and I've been strolling on up and prowled, like in stealth, loots his chest.
I've faction swapped for this week. I will be night elf shadow melding and looting these treasures.
But as always, you guys can check down the description for the articles that we looked at today on Wowhead, and that's gonna do it for us. We will see you guys later. Peace out.